Welcome to Realizing Resilience, a podcast from the Connecticut Women's Consortium. We're not behavioral health professionals, but we're your gateway to real conversations with the experts. Each episode, we'll delve into the vast landscape of mental health, from personal stories to expert insights. Together, we'll bridge the gap between clinical expertise and personal experiences, connecting with diverse voices and perspectives. Join us for insightful conversations that demystify the world of mental health.
Amy is a certified End-of-Life Doula, a healing touch practitioner, 200-hour yoga teacher trained, and is a hospice volunteer. She uses energy medicine and mindfulness in the care of others and is a proponent of self-care as a part of our healthcare. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Realizing Resilience. My name is Marisa.
And I'm Alana.
And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Amy Lane, who is a certified End-of-Life Doula. Amy, how are you doing today?
Well, how about you guys?
We're doing good. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
I'm super excited to be here.
And we're happy you're here. I want to kick off this conversation by asking if you can share a bit about your background and what inspired you to become an end-of-life doula, kind of. And I know you do work too with yoga and healing touch. And does that connect with your end-of-life doula stuff as well?
Okay, two questions in one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How I got into end of life, this has kind of been a long time coming. When I was 9, my mom died. And I always say, in a joking way, of course, that my family was the poster child for how to do it all wrong. So I learned how not to do certain things in end of life. And I always just remembered those things and just determined that we can do so much better in end of life. And so that's where that all came from. And I just kind of, this was like back in the 70s. So back in the 70s, people really did not talk about end of life, and there were very few options. I mean, like you went to a funeral home and you were buried in a cemetery. So people just didn't talk about or explore how end of life could be different. And I carried that with me for many, many years. And then when COVID happened, there was just so much death around us. And it really sparked my curiosity. And I was like, gosh, how can I really make a change in this field? And so much has happened since the 70s. I mean, there's so many more options. And there's like this death positive revolution going on right now. And I just wanted to be a part of it. So I searched for a training that really aligned with who I am. And I ended up training with Henry Fursko Weiss. He actually worked as a social worker in New York City. And he's really the pioneer here in the United States and got end-of-life doula off the ground. And he also is the founder of EOLD. Yeah, so I was really, really fortunate to get my training through him. So it was a long time coming. I mean, I'm just somebody that's always reinventing myself. I've had lots of career paths, but wow, I feel so connected to this one. So I think I'm going to hang out here for a while. So, and then you had a question about how I incorporate yoga and healing touch and kind of like the holistic path. So, there has been this explosion going on in holistic healthcare. There's massage and there's acupuncture and there's healing touch, which is what I do, and which is an energy therapy. And I just feel that if I don't offer that, I'm really not offering everything that I could possibly offer to these clients. Not everybody is interested in yoga. Not everybody is interested in breath work. Not everybody is interested in guided meditation, but I can offer these things, and then I'm meeting them where they are. So I can certainly offer these things, but it's really up to them to take advantage of those things. So so that's how I've incorporated those wonderful holistic practices.
I think it's interesting that you always say you're always like reinventing yourself. And it's kind of like each life you have, it's like the death of one and you start something new. And I think it's interesting that you are like someone who likes to deal with those cycles. And then you're someone so connected to death and the helping people through these processes as well. I think it's a nice connection between the two.
Yeah, yeah. And I just feel that, and this kind of goes along with the other things that I do as an end of life doula, is that so much of it is about communication. So much is about allowing people to talk and for me to listen, you know. So I think that's a beautiful piece of it as well.
And touching on communication, so with the training that you're leading with us, which will be on April 2nd, it's the reality of mortality, considerations for end of life. Part of that is going to be focused on empowering behavioral health professionals to have these hard conversations about death and dying. What do you think is the biggest challenge that people face in general, but also people face when dealing with their clients or in their professional practice when talking about death?
I would have to say that confronting their own fears and their own experiences with end of life, it's a very personal experience. And we hold that, deep inside of us. And I think also talking about death really forces us to look at our own mortality, which is very challenging for people, whether you are a professional or you're not a professional. I'm going to be covering a lot of different topics, but one big piece is going to be how to have a conversation and how to keep that conversation going. And we're going to be talking about death cafes, and we're also going to be sprinkling some mini death cafes throughout the training to give everybody a chance to talk. So I'm excited about that.
What is a death cafe?
Oh, well, okay. So a death cafe is just a gathering of people that are just interested in talking about death and dying. And I'm a facilitator. So basically I just introduce the meeting, and then the participants talk about whatever they want to talk about. And so I do a virtual platform. Actually, the next one that's coming up is April 3rd. And I also do one in Seymour, which is, if you go to my website, you'll see it. So, and it's really, I've been doing it now for a while. I have people from all over the world that come. My last one that I did, I had somebody come in from Turkey, which was really amazing. I get to learn about different cultures. People share some really personal stuff, and it's just, it really forms this really supportive community. And a lot of people come in and they're nervous and they don't want to share necessarily, and they're kind of like feeling it out because, again, they're uncomfortable about talking about death and dying. But then when we go through it, the next thing you know, they start sharing a little bit and sharing a little bit more. I have a lot of, what I call repeat offenders, that come in every single week or every single death doula, which I love, which tells me that they feel safe and secure, not only with me, but they're starting to feel more secure and empowered about talking about end of life. So I love it. I absolutely love it. Again.
I think it's great that you're also passionate about it too. And I think that people who go to either the death cafes or go to a training, when you know that someone is passionate about what they do, it makes you more invested in what you're really learning about and what this training is even about. So I think that it's great to be visibly passionate about something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how can behavioral health professionals from different backgrounds, whether that's hospital settings or community mental health or private practice, how can they apply the lessons from their trainings kind of to their work facing end of life issues with clients?
This is a really great question. I don't think that people in healthcare are trained enough in end of life. I actually have a friend of mine who's going through medical school right now, and I think they've covered, I think she said, an hour of their training in end of life. And that's just not enough. It's really not enough. I think we take for granted that, everybody goes through, death and dying, but each person is individual and each experience is personal, and everybody has, their own different culture or tradition around it. And we really need to be mindful of that. And again, it's all about, getting comfortable in that arena. If you're somebody that's sort of hesitant, then this is a great way to dip your feet into the water. I mean, you can't get into the pool unless you get into the pool. So that's kind of like how I look at it.
I am just like astounded that it's only an hour total. Is that across medical school, period? They're only getting like a couple hours of education on end of life?
I actually have another friend that works at a university here in Connecticut, and he asked me to come and speak for his med students. And we sat down and we started to make a plan. And then, so interesting, he like kind of like backed off, and he was like, I don't know if we can really cover this or not. And I was like, what do you mean? So that was kind of, that was disappointing. I get, that especially doctors, they're there to get people better. But the reality is in the mortality. We're not going to live forever. And isn't it about the quality rather than the quantity? How many times do you need to paddle somebody, with the electrical paddles, right? How many times do you need to bring somebody back like that? It's damaging. It's damaging to the body. So instead of having a real conversation with their patients and saying, you know what, I think we're at the end of the line here, or however they want to say it, they don't. They offer, another treatment, or this is what we can do next. And it doesn't really, like I said, it doesn't face the reality that we're all going to die. So let's really have a conversation about compassion and dignity and respect for those in front of us.
Yeah, I can imagine too, obviously, because our work here centers so much around trauma, like being a medical professional is inherently kind of a traumatizing profession, but if you have tools going into it, you can better protect yourself mentally before you then have to deal with that situation. Because I'm sure almost everyone, especially people in emergency medicine, are dealing with death regularly.
Yep. I have these wonderful conversations, especially with medical professionals, and they love to talk about it. But when it comes to, they're kind of like in this really difficult position, and I respect that. But like I said, I think that we are in a death positive revolution and that things are going to change. And I know that I'm a part of it. So I'm pleased to be here.
If someone's unsure about this training, maybe because they feel like signing up for a day of talking about this is going to be a damper or upsetting, what would you say to someone to encourage them to attend?
So the first thing that I would say is, of course, a training with CWC, right? The Connecticut Women's Consortium is just the place to be. The staff is wonderful. The facility is wonderful. So if you've never even taken a training with them, I highly encourage you to do that. This training is not a Debbie Downer. It is really, like I said, it's about empowering. And we talk a lot about a lot of different topics. There's humor in it because, death can be at times funny, which is fine. It's all good. So many people want to talk about it and may not be comfortable talking with people close to them. And so this is like the advantage of being in a room where you don't maybe know everybody. It might be a little bit easier. It's funny, I had an experience at my high school reunion, and I was like really hesitant about telling people what I was doing, because everybody's like, they do their, I'm an accountant, I'm a teacher, nobody in my entire class is an end-of-life doula, right? So there I am, like, and they're like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm an end-of-life doula. And then they're like, what is that? And so I tell them what it was. And I thought people were just going to like turn and like walk away, like, cool, that's great. And then walk away and, I'd be left standing there by myself, but that didn't happen. People were really curious, asking me questions. People were pulling me aside to talk about personal things. I mean, people want to talk about it. They want to learn about it. And like I said, I'm so honored to be a part of this profession. And I want people to experience it. So I hope people sign up. We already have a good crew so far.
And it's like you said, you can't escape death. Death happens in any way, whether it's, plants die, things die in life.
Mhm.
I know that some people could maybe be hesitant talking maybe with clients or others about death because it makes them think about their own death.
Right.
But we experience death in so many ways that I think it's holding us back if we don't just consider it for a moment.
Yeah. I think that in our society right now, it's so far, it's almost like very far removed. If you think about it, like at the end of your day today, think of, let's say like through social media or news or whatever, all the different speckles of death that you hear about during the day. This celebrity has died, or maybe your mom calls and says, so and so is sick and in hospice and all of that. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, but it's really, really difficult for people to consider their own death and the death of their loved ones. But we can't run from that. It's impossible to run from it. So if we take the opportunity to really sit in it and plan for it and, and talk about it, it just makes so much sense. It's really not much different than, let's say, planning for a birth, right? I mean, everybody wants to plan for the birth. It's very exciting. You're taking classes and, everybody's excited about it and making plans for the shower and etc. You can do the exact same thing for your own death experience. You can plan a party, you can make it as fun as you want. You can tell everybody what to wear to your ceremony, all that kind of good stuff. You can make it as personal and as beautiful as you want. But we have to really kind of talk about it and we have to share our thoughts around it in order to kind of make peace with it.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. This has been a wonderful conversation. We're so excited to have you. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for doing this, guys. I'm really pleased to be here.
I'm excited for your training. This little glimpse has made me really interested. So I'm excited.
Good. It's going to be really, really good. I'm excited.
Links will be in the description to learn more about Amy and her work and sign up for her training, The Reality of Mortality, Considerations for End of Life, on April 2nd. Check out our links below to keep up with us at the Connecticut Women's Consortium. Thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.